So what's up, guys? This is a kind of a going over what I'm gonna be doing in this channel. So it's not already blatantly obvious, I have zero background knowledge in fabrication. This is truly a hobby for me. I've never worked in like an industry where fabrication is a thing for me. I'm actually in a healthcare profession. This is truly what I enjoy to do. I initially went to college as a mechanical engineer, and then I realized I enjoy stuff like this, but I don't want to do it as my career. And then I fell in love with science and kind of landed me where I am today. That'll be a different video though. But as far as this goes, like the garage videos, the riding videos will continue to be what they are. I'm going to continue just to keep riding local places. Main thing is to kind of show my progress as a rider. You know, reviews on products on the bike I may do, and then reviews of tracks and the local area. That way you can kind of see how they are. And something I like to do is look at videos before I head out the tracks and see if they're worth actually my time to head out there. But as far as the Virago goes, before I kind of go over it, like I said, I have no real experience doing fabrication. Everything I've learned has either been through YouTube videos or just trial and error. Which is what I've done a lot on this bike. I mean, a lot on this bike. And thankfully, I didn't start the YouTube channel at the beginning, especially in the rear suspension on this bike. It took me 10, 12 iterations of failure to finally figure out what worked on this bike. Converting it from the dual rear shocks to the mono, it was quite a challenge on this bike. I'm not expecting this bike to be a showpiece. Yes, I want it to look good. I'm going for kind of a cafe racer look, but with some, I don't want to call it classic muscle car looks, but aspects of that. That's why I like the and fittings, having the fuel filter available for you to see. I like classic looks of things. I like the muscle look, if you want to say. But with a hint of these modern, going with the GSXR front end. So I like the looks of the Viragos. I like the V-twin look. That's why I actually chose this project. If I could go back and do it again, I would definitely have chosen one of the monoshock models to begin with. I believe those are pre-85, pre-84. That would have saved me a lot of time on this project. I bought this bike in July of last year, so we're exactly at a year now. 5 of those months during this project, I was out of country, so I wasn't able to work on the bike. But even so, I've already put a lot of time in this bike, and we're still quite a ways away from finishing it up. Now, at least with the frame, other than mounting my battery box, which I made in the video, the frame's pretty much done. So the only thing I'm really waiting on to do is get the carburetor mounted up, and some other small things. That way I can actually start stripping this down and painting everything, and then everything else can kind of be done in the final assembly. I got throttle cables to make. I probably got to make a clutch cable because the clutch pull on this right now is extremely heavy. I don't know, the cable itself doesn't seem like it needs to be lubed or not. It doesn't need to be lubed. It seems fine when it's off the bike, but there might be some adjustment I have to make. There's tons of stuff I have to do with the bike left, but I'm getting pretty close to being done with like major fabrication. So unfortunately, there's not gonna be a lot of that in this series, but you'll at least get to see me finish it up and go over with what I can. But do you guys have any questions on certain things or want to see specific videos on anything in particular? You can always ask. I'll try to do my best. But yeah, so I guess we can start going over the bike a little bit. A lot of this I'll go through and post some old photos of the bike. That way you can kind of see. I had tons of photos as the build. I just didn't take a lot of videos on the way. But the original bike was a 86 XV 1100. When I bought it, it was a really good example, so I really felt bad taking the bike apart. There was nothing wrong with it. So I did feel bad, but I wanted to start with a good example of the bike. Yeah, again, I kind of regret that too, because the only thing that's left of the original bike is from the head tube to right about here under the seat of the frame, and then coming down. Everything else, well, the engine, but then it said everything else is pretty much, I could have gone with just a broke down bike and done it. But like I said, it was my first bike project, and I didn't know, and I at least wanted to start with something that I knew ran well. That way I didn't have to do nothing to internally to the engine, which I'm still hoping I don't have to. I never actually took the bike for a ride before I started taking it down, but it did start, and it idled and revved up fine and everything, so it seemed like it was fine. The front end I got a great deal on it's a 2008 2008 Yamaha R1 front end. I wanted to say with all Yamaha parts on the bike to at least keep it somewhat original. I found this on a great deal. I was down in Florida packing up actually here to move for the final part, and somebody had the complete front end controls. These are the bars and bar clamps are something I've purchased, but they had a complete front end, wheel, everything ready to go. I believe I paid $350 for the complete front end. So that's the only reason I actually wasn't going to do this conversion on the bike. But then when I saw the deal, when I was down there in Florida, someone parting out the bike, I couldn't pass up the idea thing. I was actually going to use the stock front end and then just lower it. But this turned out really great. And then it's I forgot what brand or company that makes it. It's I can look it up for you guys, but I used the conversion stem. That was amazing. I actually don't have a press, so I took it to a shop. They charged me $20 to press out the old stem and put the new stem in, and then the all balls bearing kit came with the conversion stem, and then it all really went together well. Put a different one of these eBay nuts on here, just a little bit of. It looks better than the stock one. Little bling that way. Also, I didn't want to see the stem itself. It's covered up. The front end will be pretty much stock. I have new rotors coming that are waved, and I couldn't paint the old ones. I have some titanium pinch bolts, titanium banjo bolts, titanium bleeder screws, and then stainless steel bolts that hold on the caliper to the front end here. That's all through ProBolt. I'll leave a description or a link to them. Amazing products for an amazing price. The titanium's obviously a little bit pricey, but it looks amazing. Obviously, I'm going with kind of a purple theme. I don't want to give away too much on the total theme or colors I'm going to go with on the bike. I'm kind of going to want to do like a reveal once I have it all together, but there obviously will be a lot of titanium and then this nice purple going on in the bike. And then I also have a stainless steel bolt over here. I was going to try to polish that one, but it has some gouges in it, and it was $20 for a stainless steel polished one. The fuel lines, I'm gonna go with braided. I gotta find the right kit to do it. I'm not a big fan of these, and yeah, again, I think the stainless steel braided will look amazing. Does have the Brembo calipers. Gonna change the levers out to probably chrome or like a dark gray as we have on the grips here. The fuel system was done in the last video, so we have all AN fittings. Like I said, the tank was originally a dual petcock tank. This tank I purchased off of somebody from Europe. I can't exactly remember what country it was, but somewhere in the UK. Converted it to a 1/4-inch MPT. This is a steel piece I got off eBay. I'll try to add a description or a link to that. Then it goes to a 1/4-inch MPT to 4AN. This is all 4AN fittings from Color Fittings, an amazing company. This is it's called Alder Speed. I believe it's just a Japanese, Chinese part that they put on there, and the logo looks cool. Anyways, that was about $30. And it just goes across the front of the bike. And then we have our Earl's fuel filter, 4AN as well. And then, like I said, I haven't finished off the fuel system. The ignition, we switched over to a single coil system. I'll try to add the description. The AC Excel kits, versions of these are getting really expensive. They used to be cheap. This is a eBay buy. I believe it was around 30 to 40 bucks for this guy as well. And then these wires are just 8mm Taylor wires. And then I believe these are 120-degree fittings I have on here, and I just made this fit. I like it's all tucked up in a way. Yet again, more purple. So you can kind of see we're going with the theme of the purple going on here. And so I got to get this wired up. Wiring will definitely be the last piece of this bike, and it's between the wiring and the paint are the two things I'm actually scared of. The seat is an eBay seat. It's obviously been customized a lot, and I'm obviously not very good with upholstery. as you can see. So this is what I'm going to go with shape-wise and design-wise. Eventually, I will have someone professionally do this. This is just what it's going to look like, but just obviously professionally done. Oh, and like I said, the tank was actually, it was from UK. It's off of I believe a XV920 over there, one of the chain drive models. The reason I chose it is I knew I wanted to be kind of up on the tank, and I like how we have the kind of thinner part and it widens out. Not only that, but it's 5 gallons. So if I do want to take this on a little bit longer ride, then I have that ability to. The exhaust I built myself. It is standard mild steel 18 gauge. If you go to Speedway, they have these tubing kits like this. So they come pre-bent and everything. These were, I believe for 4 of these, I was able to get them shipped to the house for right around $70. And was able to build this. I used the stock flanges going into the engine, the actual flange holding it on and everything. Those were, yet again, an eBay buy. I found somebody that had pre-made. Cut ones just saved me a lot of time, and they were about $7-8 a piece. They're not the prettiest on the edges because I had to cut them off to fit up in here, but they do work. I'm gonna go ahead and repaint all of this cause, after wrapping it. When having it in the wrap in the water, you can see it kind of lost some of its color and more of a gray, and I don't see an issue with me just going over some more black. So the front's just coming out, swooping down, the front's kind of coming up, around, and out. And then I do have some baffles into the exhaust. If I ever want to ride this bike to work someday, I don't want it to be excessively loud in the morning because I leave for work around 5:30. Trying to be nice to the neighbors. I'm not sure how bad it's going to be, but regardless, they're in there. I only have about 3 to 4 inches of baffle on this one, and about 4.5, 5 inches of baffle on this one. So I'm not even sure that's going to do a lot, but trying not to make the neighbors more upset than they're already going to be if I had to start this early in the morning. The controls, yet again, these are eBay controls. I'll post a link to the company that sells a linkage kit. I do remember it was right around $50 before shipping. It came with the ends, the heme joint ends, or whatever you want to call them here. It came with everything, the threaded rod, the nuts, bolts, everything, which is a nice little kit. You can't really buy everything separately. If you do buy everything separately, you can do it right for around $50 and you'll have a little bit more, I guess, excessive material left over. These are steel. This is, I believe, some 1/2-inch rod. Right around there. I'll actually add a description, but exactly what this is. It comes steel. I bought some aluminum to replace it because I don't really want these to be painted black. I wanted these to be kind of a chrome color, or at least the aluminum bare look. So what we're going to do is replace these with aluminum. Also take off some weight because they're heavy, especially the other side. You'll see how long it is. This is the stock brake pedal. I just cut it off, drilled out the hole, and insert it. For this, I had to remount this for the brake sensor, so we actually have brake. And then everything else backwards is just stock the way it was. As you can see where the old shocks used to be mounted, just way back here, and then now we have this. This is off this with a front end was $350, so he threw in the rear shock. And then the issue I had was running into was the shock with the stock spring was excessively, like, if I just set the bike down off of the jack, it would just immediately flatten out. So I've gone through tons of different designs. Finally, I found this. Now, not only is this spring heavier, so I believe the stock spring is around 550 to 650 pounds. This is actually a 1,300 pound spring. I believe Race Tech, the people I bought this from, there's only one spring rate heavier, I believe a 1,500 pound spring. And as you can see, I'll actually compare it to the stock spring. So as you can see, the spring is much larger. It was probably the scariest thing in my life I've ever done was putting that spring on. And unfortunately, I'm gonna have to take it off to have it powder coated or painted the color I want. So I'll probably do a video of how I install springs, because unfortunately, if you loosen it all the way up, it will not allow you to take the bottom collar off. But But I believe Racetech has these for around $120. So mattering on what you're going to do with your bike and what type of spring rate you need, they have anything from like a 350 all the way up to a 1,500-pound spring in like 100-pound increments. Now, unfortunately, it's still stock valved, so when it comes to rebound and compression with that heavy of a spring, it's not going to do a lot. But I checked with Racetech, and for the price they want to revalve and do all that, it's just a little too much. Now, if I ever have to have it rebuilt, I don't mind sending it to them, but they were wanting quite a bit of money to have it actually revalved for this setup. And for a street bike, which isn't going to really see a lot of action, as long as it's rideable, I'm not going to worry too much. But you can see this is the lower mount that I finally came up with in the final version of it. Some of my earlier versions were up here. And the issue I was running into was, so here's your pivot point on the swing arm. If farther back you have it, you're actually going to have more force. So just doubling the distance from here to center of shock, I doubled the effective rate of the shock. And then not only that, but then I brought it up some, giving the shock a little bit of angle. And that was the final little key that it now feels really good. It's a nice stiff ride with what I'm wanting out of it, at least a street bike. My dirt bike, I'm used to a really soft suspension. But for a street bike, it feels about right. And I'll maybe post a video later of showing me sit on the bike and bouncing around. The front end's really stiff still, but there's not a lot I can do about that. And also, like I said, I'm gonna wait till it's completely done and then worry about trying to get the suspension as comfortable as possible. These are what we made in the video I'll be posting soon. Got some stuff done today, all separate video. From about here on both sides back, this was yet another eBay buy. It's integrated turn lights and brake light into the tube. I believe it's 7/8 tube, might be 1 inch. And then on the bottom here, we have one of these little push button things. They were actually advertised as for drift cars, for bumpers, for a quick release. So to release the seat, all you do is push this. It just comes off. It has a little tab on the front that came with it. And then here, I haven't really done a lot with this, and as you can see, my sheet work isn't the best. I gotta figure this all out before I do the final sandblasting and painting on the frame. This tank's not mounted at the moment, but what it's doing is it's sitting on this grommet. There'll be a washer up and below and above this, but as I'm taking the bike apart a lot, I just don't keep it mounted. And then just release the tank. And then here's what we got. Like I said, this is the mount for the tank. Obviously some shoddy welding. This is just my first welds actually in this corner over here with the MIG welder. I was getting tired of using the TIG for everything. It was just too much. So like I said, this whole area, I would say in this general area for all the suspension has been redone so many times. It feels great now. It's stiff. It is what it is. But the amount of times I had to take this apart and redo this because it just wasn't working out it was at that point I wanted to get rid of the project, to be totally honest with you. But I got it figured out now. It feels really good. So there's that. And then let's say here's our other side plate we finished today. There's a little bit of a gap here. I'm gonna try to clean this up. That way it sits a little bit flusher. And then our intake manifold starting to get a little bit of rust. It's mild steel as well. It's the same type of tubes from Speedway for the exhaust, but this is 1.5 inch. The exhaust is an inch and a quarter. It only took me one of those tubes to build that. And then the plates for the bracket, for the mounting up to the flanges there, I built those myself out of some, I believe, 3/16-inch steel. And yeah, so that's kind of what we got going on here. Here's the other side for the shifting. It's slightly hitting this tube right here, so I'm gonna just use another washer to pop this out a little bit. But yet again, big heavy steel tube. I'm gonna replace this with some aluminum and then polish it up. I think that'll look good on the color scheme I'm going for. And then finally, We got our license plate. I didn't want anything hanging up here. I like the clean looks of the bike, the way it sits. So kind of not my favorite thing to do, but I thought this was my next best option for a license plate. And then I'll just add some lighting, not for brakes, just for simply lighting the plate up so we can drive at night if we ever feel like it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. The rear tire is the Sox tire, which is a 140/90/15. And the reason I kind of ended up going with a fatter front tire on the bike instead of running like a sports bike tire is I can't get a sports tire with a thinner wall for the rear. So we went fat instead of doing like a fat skinny. It just didn't look right. And honestly, I kind of like the looks of the front tire being like that. How the handling is going to be with it, I don't know yet. The front tire for this is a 140/75/17, so it's a quite a bit larger tire. And unfortunately, because of that, I was going to try to do some type of front fender for it, but I know the R1 front fenders are not going to fit now, and I don't really have the expertise to build a fiberglass fender. I tried to do a fiberglass piece for this back here. It was something of this sort, and I could not get it right. The amount of work that goes into these molds is just was more than I was willing to do. So, like I said, when it comes to what we got next is just really mounting that battery box into the frame, and then I think we'll be good on frame fabrication. And at that point, I think I'm going to tear it down, and then the two things I'm going to try to do is get the motor going, so stripped down, painted, and the same thing with the frame, and then we're going to slowly start assembling from there. And we should be pretty much on the final assembly. I have lots of stuff to do, but at this point it's not really fabrication, it's just buying pieces and doing things. I need to run probably a new clutch cable, a new throttle cable, front brake lines, gotta get the rotors on there. Gotta finish up the intake manifold once I get the piece, just for the final fitment of where I want the carburetor. And then after that, it's just, like I said, lots of little details. I said the one thing I'm worried about is paint, so I'm definitely I've never painted something on this scale, this size of a project, so for me it's gonna take a lot of time to get research what I need to do. For the frame and the engine, I'm a big fan of VHT, so for the frame we have VHT's roll bar paint, which I've used for other projects, which works really good. And then VHT for the wheels, wheel paint, and then for all the engine paint we're going to go with VHT, at least with the brand. For some of the parts I may do the wrinkle paint stuff. It's going to be kind of like I'm doing stuff slowly as I'm putting it together. And then also the wiring. I'm going to use the Moto Gadget M unit to do the wiring to simplify a lot of this, because the stock wiring harness, which we have down there, is just it's quite a bit of a mess. So at least from my understanding with the M unit, the only thing I'm going to need is the controller for the engine, and then I believe the starter relay and rectifier, and then everything else I can kind of wire in myself, and it looks a lot more simplistic, which is what I'm going for at this bike, at least with the wiring, because I've never done a full true rewire of a bike like this. I tried to do a simplified stator. Unfortunately, the way this stator works on this bike is within the starter relay you have this, which actually engages the starter to the, I'm guessing, flywheel in there, so I can't go with a standalone unit, so I'm going to have to use this again. So I tried, but it wasn't going to work. At this point, like I said, this is what we have. So yeah, like I said, this is kind of what I'm going to be doing on the channel, at least on this side, the garage side. Some other things I would like to do is do some review of tools, things that I use. I do use a lot of Harbor Freight tools when it comes to certain things. I've also learned that sometimes Harbor Freight tools aren't the best, so like I said, as I buy stuff. The two things I really want to go over: my prime weld TIG and the MIG I just purchased, my welding table, things that I use in fabrication. I think so. I'm not trying to do this channel for the professionals. Obviously, like I said, my fabrication skills and stuff, I don't believe are anywhere near those. But for maybe somebody that's scared of taking on a project like this, something to look at, like how am I doing it? If you guys have questions of how I do stuff, ask. I would love to help. There's certain tools that you want to see, certain projects I could do. Just let me know. But this is what I'm working on currently, and kind of, yeah. So if there's anything you guys, like I said, request, let me know where you guys kind of want me to do the channel. I just don't want to be, another YouTube channel doing the same things, copying other people. But yeah, let me know if you guys want, and I'll try to do my best to do it.